So before we get started, I'm just gonna show you guys that demo or the front end that we made last time because we fixed it, hopefully. Oh, wrong thing.
You're recording, right?
Yeah, I'm recording. So this is basically what we're making, and we just added a front end to it. So it's just a task list. You can check tasks off, you can edit them and delete them. Yeah. So we're gonna be making the same thing we made last week, but using our new knowledge of how to use databases. Yeah. So let's get started. I'm going to turn this off. Yeah, just open up this code. So this should basically be what you have if you downloaded the demo code. This app.py here looks very similar to what we started with last time. So it's all the routes that you're familiar with. We have tasks. We have get tasks. We have create task, get specific task by an ID, update task, and delete task. But the thing that's new is this db.py file. So this is where we're going to be doing all of our database logic. And for this, we're going to be using SQLite 3. It is just the library of our choice for this. It's also what we used in the terminal last time. So out of this, to try and understand what's going on here in this, huh?
Make it bigger.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah. Why is it not full screen? Well, no full screen today. Manual full screen. Oh, that's too much. Can everybody see this well?
Oh, the lights.
Yeah, turn off the lights. I think it's like, good. I got it. I fixed it.
Oh,
Yeah. Okay. So let's try and understand what's going on here. We have a class, which is our database driver. This is where we're going to be doing everything in our database. If you're not familiar with classes in Python yet, I don't know how 1110 covers that, but you can talk to us about it. And then this is what instantiates our database driver, what instantiates the class. And this singleton function here, you don't have to understand how it works, but just understand that all it does is it limits it so that there's only one instance of a class that can ever be created because we don't want to make a new database every time we run the code. We want to save it. So this singleton function basically just makes it so that if it doesn't exist, it'll create it. Otherwise, it won't create it. Yeah, cool. So let's just get started. Um, yeah, I'm going to work on this init function first. So what init is going to be doing is basically securing a connection with the database. And then it will be storing that connection into an instance variable con. So the way that we do that, I'm just going to make a comment real quick. We're going to be securing database connection and storing it to instance. I'm going to try and be better about documentation because I think it'll be helpful. So the way we do this is self.con, so con is our instance variable here, equals SQLite3 dot connect. And then we are going to be making a to-do app. So I'm just going to call this DB to-do.db. All of your DB files are going to be called .db in this class. It's just how it is. And then we're going to be doing check same thread equals false. So what this does is it prevents us from making multiple edits to the database at the same time. You don't have to worry about it too much, and there's actually some good things about turning this to true, but just for right now, we're going to have this false. And then to try and explain this connect thing a little bit, where does it? The connect, this is just establishing a connection to the database, and we do that with SQLite3.connect. Yeah, and storing it into con. So we're connecting to the database, making it to do.db, and storing it into con. Yeah. And then the first thing that we're going to do when we make the database is create the task table, because that's what we're going to be working with. The way we do that is just call the create task table function. Awesome. Yeah. So now we're going to be making that. We're going to be creating the task table. You want to do it? Cool.
Yeah, so this init thing, as you guys can see, it will, like, when we're actually when we first create the database driver, it's gonna init, and inside the init we're gonna create the task table. So first thing we're gonna do is create the task table essentially. So here I'm gonna create a new function called create task table, and here we're gonna put itself.
You have a capital.
Yeah, I do. Yep. And here, because we're also going to be using SQL, like last time how we did SQL inside the SQL in like terminal, this time we're going to be writing raw SQL as strings. So we're going to be using SQL to create a task table. And here we're just gonna, the way to execute SQL inside our db.py file is just going to be self.connection. So our connection, and then we're going to do call.execute like this. And inside here, we can pass in our SQL like query. So here I can do three. This, that looks ugly. And here I can pass in like the SQL query. So in this case, it will be create table if exists.
We didn't talk about if exists last time, but it basically just checks if it exists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna set so our table we're gonna have for each task is we're gonna have an ID, we're gonna have a description. Am I tabbing wrong? Description, and we're also gonna have like to check whether or not it's been done. So we're gonna have a Boolean done. So ID, as last time, we're gonna have it be an integer, and we're gonna have primary key, and we're also gonna auto increment it. So it's easier for us to, so we don't have to track the like the ID counter. And then description will be text, and we're gonna set it as not null. And for done, the Boolean, right here, we're gonna make it a Boolean. So there's a new type you guys haven't seen. It's gonna be a Boolean, so true or false. And here we're also gonna make it not null.
Just add your commas.
Yes, I need my commas. And also don't forget your commas because you need commas in between like the column names you're gonna create. Yeah, I don't need a comma right here. Yep,
Yeah.
this should look good. Yeah, looks good. So that's how you, yeah, use self.con execute and put in your SQL query here in a string, so you can execute it. Yeah.
I remember when I was taking the course, I was a little overwhelmed at this point in this demo. I was like, what's going on? What is self? What I mean, what is con? What is execute? What is init? Like, what is going on here? And I would say that you'll eventually understand what's going on here, but if you can just understand at least the SQL queries that we're doing, and like why we're doing them, I think the syntax will come later. Just
Yeah.
trying to understand like the base reasons that we're doing it.
Yeah, let me do this.
But yeah.
Also, because we've created the table, we also want another function for us to drop the table. Remember how last time we can drop tables, like completely delete them? Here we're just going to create a function called delete task table. Why do I have keep having that? Task table. And here what we're going to do is we're just going to delete like the table. So let me just put a drop string real quick. Deleting task table. SQL. Yep.
Suing SQL.
Oh, suing? Using. Right, my bad. And here we're just gonna execute the drop like query we had last time. So self.con.execute. Here we're gonna have drop table if exists. Task. So here, this query, we're gonna drop table only if it exists, and the table name is task. So this function, delete task table, will successfully execute this query.
All right. Cool. Okay, so now we have a way to make the table and a way to delete the table. The next thing we're going to be doing is going back to our app.py. and we're going to be making our get tasks function. But the first thing that we have to do is, I don't think this is supposed to be here. That'd be fun. First thing that we have to do is import our DB file, and then we're going to be doing this db equals db.database driver. And what this does is instantiates the database driver class so that we can interact with the database. And then we're going to be actually writing the task for, or writing the route for getting all tasks now. So I don't know if you guys remember how we did this before, but the way we're going to do it now, this is all the same. Hopefully this still makes sense. This is our base. This is our current thing, our current URL path. And it's going to be all tasks. The way we do this here is we're just going to be returning json.dumps. So this is the same as last time when we were trying to return a response. And this time we're going to be turning a dictionary with tasks pointing to db.getAllTasks. And this basically is just going to call our getAllTasks function in the DB, and it's going to let the DB handle getting all of our tasks. So we don't really have to worry about too much generally in this app.py file, which is quite nice. So yeah, the next thing to do is to actually write the getAllTasks function in the DB. So we're going to be doing def getAllTasks, just self passed in. And then, yeah, using SQL, turns all tasks in table. Okay, cool. So now let's get into how we would make this in our DB. So we're going to have this variable named cursor. And inside of it, we're going to be doing a SQL query, which is self.con.execute. This is how you run a SQL query. And we're going to be doing just select all, remember star is all, from task. So we're storing the result of that query into cursor.
Semicolon at the end.
Yeah. Remember to put semicolons at the end of your SQL queries. And then we're going to be making a tasks list. And the reason that we have to do this, we can't just return cursor directly, is because SQL gets us a type that we can't read in Python, and we have to get it back into a type that we can read. So the way we're going to do that is just go through each row in cursor. So cursor is going to get us a list of rows. And for each row, we're going to be appending it to tasks. And we're going to be doing that by doing ID. We'll get the first element of row. Oops. Description. We'll get the second row of one. And done. We'll get second index or third row. So yeah. And then we're just going to be returning tasks. Yeah, and this is a bit hard to understand, but basically we're just getting a list of things that we can't understand fully, and we're going to be putting them into a dictionary here so that we can.
Yeah, you can think of cursor as like your cursor in an Excel like sheet.
Mhm.
So what our SQL returned to us is a type that we don't really want to deal with. So what we do is we imagine having your cursor in Excel and you just go down by one each time. So what you use for row in cursor, you're basically reading every single row in the Excel sheet or whatever get all task like the SQL gives back. And then we're just putting it inside our own JSON object and then returning it. So yeah, ID is row 1 or the row 0, index 0, description, and so on.
Yeah, exactly. And then also generally, I would usually start with like the DB function first. I just did the app one on first on accident because I was not paying attention. But yeah, I would start with the DB normally because that's where your like main logic is going to be, and then app.py should usually just follow from that. But hopefully this does make sense why I did this. All we're doing is returning tasks, and then we're doing that get all tasks function that we made here. Yeah, so let's try this out and see how many mistakes we made. So make sure your virtual environment is activated and you installed all your requirements.txt. Hopefully I did that. And then just Python 3 apps.py. See, we messed up. Self dot create task table.
Semicolon.
Oh, semicolon where?
Yeah, it's in here.
Doesn't like it?
Am I using? Might be because I'm using this thing because it's like triple.
Hmm. I think that should be.
Because if
Is it
usually we
that
just
one?
use one quote string. This one I'm using three. It's basically like a comment.
Oh, so what
It's
is it?
kind of weird actually.
So what do you think I should fix?
Okay, just put all of this in one string, like in one row. But it's hard to read. That's why I use the triple string.
But you don't think it's gonna work? Or you think this will work?
This will work if you just use one string. Yeah. And then change the triple string and triple like quotes into one quote, one single string.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's weird. Like that?
Yeah.
Huh, that's weird. Why is it?
You save. It's so tiny. Can you make it bigger?
Yeah. So we'll probably be debugging a lot because we're gonna mess up.
Near X6. Go back to the this.
All right, let's think. Could it be like some thing that I haven't installed, right? I try remaking my virtual environment.
Yeah, try that.
Also, I might try just deleting the DB. Oops, not that. No. This is
So
like,
anxious. It's
hmm.
meant to be if not exist, bro. Here. Right here.
Oh, you think
Yeah,
that's
we
it?
only create it if it doesn't exist.
No way, that's it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. All right, y'all. We were trying to create the table if it already existed. Obviously, we only want to create it if it doesn't exist. So, yeah, create table if not exists. Let me see if I can just make this look nicer again. That's supposed to be okay. All right. Yeah, here we go. All right, now let's test our code again. Let's see if we can
Get larger. Like
get all
it's
tasks.
so tiny. Yeah. Why can't you full screen? It's weird.
Ooh, could not send request.
Eight
Oh,
thousand.
8,000.
Yeah. Yeah, this is one of the issues like you guys might encounter. So go back to the code.
Should I just switch it to 5,000
Yeah.
here?
So over here in app.py, you see how the starter code puts you at 8,000. You can, as long as it matches, it will work, but we recommend just use 5,000 for this course. So if you change it to 5,000, so like just now we couldn't find it on the URL.
Wait.
Yeah,
Oh, I have to
restart it. So make sure your like Postman, your testing, and your actual code uses the same port.
Yeah, and our test script by default will use 5,000, and I think we want you to turn it in with 5,000 just so we can grade you all the same.
Yep.
Okay, what's the next thing we're doing?
So the test works. Yeah. So in case like if your create table does not work, that means like the table already exists, and then you can call like self.delete task table, which is the function we make in DB, like right here. Like just how Sky did just now. He manually deleted the todo.tb, the DB. But yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify actually. Like remember how last time we only had one file, app.py, with all the routes and all the logic. This time we're actually abstracting it out. So most of the logic within storing and like getting the data is in db.py. And then other file is app.py. This is now our file specifically for routes. And in each route, we're trying to do less work here, and we're just gonna call the functions in db.py that does the work for us. So this just makes it so it's like easier to like debug your routes just to see it's so much cleaner. It's just one line. And it's just a way to sort of like spread it out, spread the work between DB and app. And it's also much easier to debug because it will tell you where your error is at. So if the error is in db.py, you just have to look at the logic. So there's something wrong with your logic, for example. Like just now, we immediately knew it's one of our SQL queries.
You think the code comes with 2 A's on task? Anyway.
Yeah, that might have been a typo somewhere. Yeah. But yeah. So now let's start making the next one. So get task by ID. Get task by ID. Here we're gonna pass in self, and take note this is db.py, so we're gonna be starting with the logic. And here we also need to pass in the ID of the task we want to change. And the ID will pass in from app.py. So remember how last time in the route you could have the integer? We're going to take that integer and we're going to send it to db.py. That's why we're putting it in the parameter right here. So here, using SQL, getting the pass by ID. So doc string. And then here, we're going to create the cursor variable again. And here we're going to do self.con.execute. And we're going to execute a SQL query to get us a task by the ID. So select all from task. And the way to filter by ID, like last time, is just to use the where keyword, where ID equals. And here we're supposed to put in our ID, right? We want to put this ID into this string. So there's some special syntax to do that. The way to do that is just to put a question mark and afterwards, so in the same brackets, so like execute, you're giving this as the first argument. Over here, you want to put the ID right here. So this syntax, it will place the ID, which we got right here. It will place the ID into the question mark inside our string. Does anyone have any questions about this? This does look quite weird at first, but that's just syntax for this demo and for like this assignment. Yeah, sure. Which like this comma? Yeah, this
there can be multiple things you pass in. So you can like if you have multiple question marks and you pass in multiple things, it'll put them in order.
Yeah, but also if you have only one, you still have to put the comma. If you ask me for the reason, I'm gonna be honest, I don't really know. Because usually like we're building up to like the final like way to build a backend, right? This is still like in the second step of abstraction. Later on, we won't have to write any SQL. So this is something we're both kind of unfamiliar with, sorta, but like yeah, we're just like trying to teach you from the ground up. But yeah. So just make sure to have the comma because this is you can think of it as like a tuple or like a tuple with many things. Yeah.
So if you want to pass in two things, you just put 2 question marks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can put 2 question marks, and you can, yeah.
I don't
Perfect.
remember if we do it in this demo or not, but yeah,
All right.
it's like this.
Yep. And now we want to parse whatever we got from our cursor. So we're going to do for row in cursor. And for every row, we know we're going to get a task because we're getting task by ID. So we're going to return turn a JSON object, and we're going to have the first thing be ID. That'll be row 0. Okay, let me just copy this like this. Description, row 1, and done, row 2. Yep. And then if we actually did not find a task of that ID, we want to fallback, so we're going to return none here. Yep. So in this case, cursor returns us like a list of objects, list of tasks where ID equals, I mean, ID has to be unique. But for example, this is like return select from task where like name equals something. It will return us multiple things in cursor. That's why for every row in cursor, so cursor now, like I'll just explain with a board. So like this now, when we're getting all tasks, every single row is a task. Like over getting on task.
And these are actually like when we're getting in this one, we mean row how we meant it in lecture, which is one entry. We're getting
Yep.
one task.
So in get all task, every single row, we're gonna add it to this task row. So we're gonna add it to a list and then return it. But for get task by ID, we're actually when we go to the first one, like right here, we're actually gonna immediately return this because we only want one. So that's why we have a return inside a for loop. And if we don't find anything, then we just return none. So we didn't find anything. Yeah, so it means. And then so now we're done with the DB. We can save that, and now we go to app.py to create a route. So here we have the same decorator. We put the integer here, like the ID in the route. Get task ID is right here and here. This is the endpoint. Endpoint for getting a task by ID.
The type of documentation we were doing in demos is plenty for your assignments. We just want you to have some type of documentation for these functions, for these routes.
So the way we're going to do it, we're going to make a variable task, and here we're just going to call db.get task by ID, and here we're going to give it the ID. So in this case, it's task ID. Okay. That. So now we have the task. However, we have to check if the task is not there, right? If we didn't find a task. So if task is none, then here we're going to return an error response. So return, this is the same as last time, json.dumps. Here we're going to give a JSON object with the keyring error, and the value, we can just give it like a descriptive error message. So like task is not found. And then here we're going to give it a response code of 404 because it's not found. But if we did find it, we're going to return json.dumps. And here we're going to actually return the task that we found. So we're going to return this thing right here. So we're going to json.dumps task. And then here we're going to give a response code of 200. Yep.
Yeah.
So if we test this, let's go to Postman. Actually, we don't even have the create task yet.
Yeah, we can't.
Where's the create task? Yeah, we haven't done this one. So we'll test the get task after this.
Yeah. Yep. Because we can't get a specific task if we don't create one first.
Because there's nothing right now in our database. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we're going to be doing create tasks now. So we're going to be making insert task table. Is this correct? Isn't this? Oh yeah, this is good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And the reason why we're naming it insert task table,
Yeah.
because in SQL, remember how when we want to insert something in the table, we use the insert keyword. That's why we're using this name. So yeah, you'll see later in the SQL.
Yeah. So in this, we're going to have self as always, and then we're going to be passing in a description and a done boolean, right? So just as a quick doc string, let's say using SQL, insert task into task table. All right, sweet. Now we're going to be doing the same thing we did here, getting cursor. And the SQL query we're doing here is the insert one. So that will be insert into task, which is our table. And then we're passing in description and done. And the values for those, remember these are the names, as in these names.
The column names.
Yeah, column names. And we're passing in the values. Here's what you were mentioning, 2 question marks here. Yeah, and then semicolon. And then for the question marks, we're just going to be passing in description and done, which are what we passed into the function here as parameters. Cool. And then something new that we haven't seen before is self.con.commit. So what this does is it commits the change we just made to the table. So the reason we didn't have to do this before is because we weren't mutating any data. Now we're actually adding something, so we have to commit the change we made. So in general, like get, you're not gonna have, or get methods, you're not gonna have to commit. But if you're deleting, if you're updating or putting, and yeah, all the things that you change the data, you're gonna have to commit. So we'll just commit our change, and then we're going to be returning cursor.last ID. You remember what that is? Last row ID.
This is the last row, like the ID
Oh,
of the
I
last
think,
row.
yeah, I think basically this just returns the ID of the row that we just created.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We're gonna see. We're gonna find out. Yeah. I'll get back to you on that. So now we're gonna make our app.py, our create task. So we're going to be getting our, remember we have to get like a description and a done from the request, and we're gonna do that the same way. So we'll do body equals JSON.loads and then request.data. This is the same as last time. We're just getting our request, and then we'll be getting description, and that's body.get description. Task ID. Okay. Yeah. We just have to get the description. We don't have to get the done because it'll automatically be false. And then we're going to be getting the task ID. And the way that we're going to be doing that is we're going to just be inserting our description. So it will just return us the ID of the thing we create. So that's what last row ID does. It just returns the ID of the row that we just made. And then, yeah. So we're going to be doing db.insert task table and passing in our description. And by default, it's not done, so we'll pass in false. So yeah, I explained that kind of backwards, but we're going to be inserting it, and then it'll return the task ID. So we'll put that into the task ID here. And what that'll allow us to do, and also the reason that we return the last row ID here, or return the ID here, is that now we can do task equals get task by ID. So we can get the task by ID using what we already created, which is our db.get task by ID. And then we can check if our task is none. So this is always good practice. Generally, you want to be checking if things work out correctly. You don't want it to be your fault when something goes wrong. So you want to give descriptive error messages when possible. And we also will test you on this on the assignments. So try and think through that. Yeah. So if it's none, we're just going to be throwing an error. I could probably like copy the error from. Is it the same? It's almost the same, but the error message is going to be, let's say, like something went wrong creating task. And here it's going to be a 400 error because it's not a not found error. It's just a nondescript error. Yeah, and then we're just going to be returning JSON.dumps with our task that we got, and 201 status code, which means that we created it. Yeah, so I think we should be good to just test this on Postman, see how we did. This is still running. I think that's a good sign. So let's try creating a post. Practice throwing eggs. Sounds good. Okay, 201 created. That's good sign. Now we can test our get task by ID. This one had ID 1. So we'll try getting that. Boom! Mic drop. Everything works so far. All right. Yep. Okay, any questions so far on what we've made? Yep, think we're good.
So next we're gonna be doing the update task. I know it looks a bit hairy because it is like raw SQL and stuff. But trust me, we'll abstract out of this and you won't have to touch SQL again. So let's create the function to update a task. So update task by ID. And here we're gonna give it here's gonna be self, but here we're gonna be able to upgrade everything. So we're gonna be able to update the description, whether or not it's done, and also we're gonna give it the ID. So like which task to update. And docstring again using SQL update the task by ID. Yep. And here is going to be executing an update query in SQL. So it'll be what was it self.con.execute, and here we'll be doing update task, the table task, and we're going to set the description to be a question mark. We're going to input that later. Comma, we're going to set done to be also a question mark, which we'll input again later. And also here, we will have the filter. So we're only going to update where the ID is the one we gave it. So we're going to input this again later. So this time we have 3 question marks. And the way to do that is to have, again, the tuple here. You can give a description, which was passed in inside parameters right here. Description, we have done, and we have ID. So this will take the description we got and put it inside the SQL query. Take done, put it right here, and take ID and put it like right here. Yeah. And then here, because we are updating our database, we're changing something. We also want to commit. So similar to how we committed in right. Oh, it's down. Wait, no.
It was right
Where
right
was
there.
it? Oh,
I think right above where you were.
right here. Yep. So this is how we were like inserting something in the task table. We also want to commit after we update something. So the general rule is whenever you're changing something, you have to commit. But whenever you're just getting something, when you're just reading it, you don't have to commit. Yeah. Oh, good catch, good
Yeah,
catch.
please like shout stuff out like that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wait, should we
That's
throw him an egg low key?
Yeah, go
Yeah,
get him
bro.
an egg.
Heads up.
Ooh, nice.
Nice catch.
Wait.
All right.
Just gonna save that. And now we're going to do the app.py. So we're gonna work on our route. So right here, update task. So here the docstring again is endpoint for updating a task. Here we're gonna do body dot. We're gonna get stuff from the body as usual. JSON.loads. Here is gonna be request.data. And this, I'm just gonna copy this actually. Right here. So we get the description as well, and also we need the done body.get done.
This time we're allowing you to change the done status. So
Yeah.
we need to get done.
And then here we're just gonna call the function we just created in DB. So it's going to db.update task by ID. And right here is asking for description, done, and ID. So let's put that in right here. We have description, done, and the ID, which we got in the route. So this thing, so task ID. So after we pass all of that, we want to check if we successfully like updated the task and we didn't delete it or anything. So we're just gonna try and see if we can find it. So task equals db.get task by ID. And we're gonna give it the task ID. So this is to check that we've didn't remove it or anything. So we're just gonna check if the if task is none and we somehow deleted the task, then here we're gonna throw an error. If not, we will return the task. So here should be
I feel like we should do like it makes sense to do that before we try to upgrade. Like just move that above.
it is true.
I don't know. I don't think
Yeah,
it matters that much.
doesn't really matter, but we can move this above. So
Do the task as well.
right here, right?
I was just saying like it would make sense to check if it's none, like because we pass an ID, we want to check if it exists and then we want to update it. So I think it would make sense to do it beforehand.
Yep. Yeah. So we check if the task exists first, and then if it does exist, then we can update it. And then we just have to return based on the dumps. Here we just put the task, and we give a status code of 200. Yep. So going through it again, we get the task ID in the route. We get the body, we read the body the user gives us, we single out the description and done. Afterwards, we try and find the task. If the task is not there, then we return an error message, task is not found. If it is there, we will try and update the task, and then we're going to return JSON dumps. We're going to return the task to the user.
Cool.
Yep. And now if we test it, let's try update something. Is it this one? Yeah. So what's in the body?
Yeah, we probably should have shown body for that.
Yeah. So we have this route task with ID 1, and it's a put request. And in the body, we put description, do homework, and done true. Let's change this actually. So and done true. All right. Actually, no, I haven't eaten noodles. False. And then let's send this. Oh, 405 method not allowed.
Did you?
I think our method is wrong. Yeah, right here. So notice how here it's still post. This should be put.
I believe you can do post requests as or like what we taught you is update. You can use post, but we suggest using put because we don't want to like create a new one every time.
Near where syntax error. Have a typo. So because it's SQL where we want to look into in db.py.
Maybe you don't need the second comma after done.
Where? Right here.
Done.
Oh, right here, yeah. So adding the comma there makes it expect like a third column to set. So let's try doing it without. Is it running? It is, okay. Right here. There you go.
Nice. Wait.
Oh, I see the problem. So does anyone see the problem here? So I changed my task to be eat noodles. However, it's giving me back description, practice throwing eggs, and done is 0.
I see why.
Does someone want to try and explain? Yeah.
Why did it not update? What did we mess up?
Have that pure.
Wait, and then you did get all tasks right now?
Sure.
One.
Okay. Yeah.
It is updated when we do get all tasks, but it wasn't updated when we did update. Is the egg question. What did we mess up? Go back to the code again.
Yeah. So it did successfully update. However, what update, like what our request is responding, like giving back to us in the response was the wrong thing, right? And the error is actually here. So when we check if the task exists, this was the old task with practice throwing eggs. And then we updated it to become eating noodles. But task still has like the throwing eggs one. So it returned us the throwing eggs one. So to fix this, all we have to do is we just have to get it again. So after we know it's there,
Yes,
after
that.
after the update, we're gonna get it again. And this should give us like the right thing. So here I'm gonna change it again. Eat pizza, for example, send, and yeah, it gives us eat pizza right away. Yep. Hurry up.
Yeah, we're like a little low on time, so I'm gonna hustle. But yeah,
Task.
our last thing is just going to be deleting a task. It should be pretty simple. We're just going to be deleting task by ID. And then all we need for this one, other than self, is just the ID of the thing we're going to be deleting. All right. SQL delete task by ID. Okay. So to do this, it's just going to be one SQL query. All it is self.con.execute. And then it's delete from task where ID equals, and then we're passing in the ID. This should be all familiar by now. It does take a second to understand, but we have done this before. And then we pass in the ID here. Yeah, hopefully this makes sense. And then we do have to commit here because we did mutate the data. Cool. So that's all we need for our DB delete. Now we're just going to be writing it here. Oh, we already have it. I forgot. Okay, so we're passing in a task ID here in the URL. And this is going to be for deleting task from DB. Yeah. All right. So the first thing that we got to do to delete it is to get it. So we're going to do task equals, and then we're going to get it by doing db.get task by ID, passing in the task ID that we have. Cool. So this should get us the task. If it doesn't, we're going to want to throw an error. And I'm just going to copy this from above. Yeah. Task is not found if we don't find it. Cool. Now we're safe programmers. And then all we're going to be doing is just db dot delete task by ID. Task ID. Pass in the task ID and just delete it. And then return based on and return the task and have a status code of 200 because we didn't create anything, but everything is okay. This looks pretty good to me. Let's test it out. I'm just gonna rerun this. And
Get off first, maybe.
yeah. So we have this one, task, eat pizza. See, deleting it. See if it works. Does say it was successfully deleted. We got the 200 status code, so we should be good, but let's just double check, do get all, and we have no tasks. So that's good. Everything worked well. By the way, I just copied my Postman request from last demo. But yeah, if you need any of these, this is what they are. Cool. So I think we're just going to do the Kahoot unless
Yep.
anybody has any questions beforehand.
Any questions?